7. So if you are up to maybe a little younger than 35, maybe it's a little older, you have a successful career, but you want to think about how to take it up a notch, maybe. Here's something very, very exciting to consider. Maybe you've never heard about it before, the White House Fellows Program. Cindy Mullis is the director in studio with us. And Anand Veeravagu is our next fellow from California, correct?
That's right, from California.
Palo Alto?
That's right.
Great community. Stanford University?
That's right.
Did you go there?
You know, I was there for my medical school degree, and then I stayed for residency.
I got it. Right, yeah. So what is your profession at Stanford or in Palo Alto?
Sure, absolutely. So most of my career has been focused on medicine, primarily research for spinal cord injury and brain tumors. From there, in medical school, I applied to residency and began my residency as a neurosurgeon. So for the last 4 years, I've spent training as a neurosurgeon, and most recently at the Palo Alto Veterans Hospital.
You are a neurosurgeon, right?
I am.
You actually operate? I mean, do you do surgery, brain surgery?
I do have the privilege of doing surgery, particularly in the last year for...
Isn't that scary?
It is. It can be. It can be. You know, I think we spend a lot of time practicing and really getting into...
I would hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never had brain surgery, but I would hope the person...
and you won't
if
ever
I ever
need
did,
I'm with you.
the people that operate on me would have practiced a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a long training process. It's 7 years.
Wow.
And this year actually counts as one of my years. We have a year dedicated to professional development, and some people choose to do research, some choose to do clinical science. I chose to be a part of the White House Fellows Program and was accepted.
He is not practicing surgery.
This year I am not.
All right. Well, congratulations for making the program. Cindy, we were talking about the outreach and how important it is. You mentioned President Clinton.
President Clinton called this program Washington's best kept secret, and we're really trying to change that. We're really trying to get out there and do more outreach.
Yeah, and we're trying to help you this morning,
We appreciate
making
it.
sure all of our friends in Full Court Press Land know about the program and know the opportunity, the tremendous opportunity provided here. So, how did you find out about the program?
Sure, that's a great question. Halfway through residency, I started thinking about ways to participate in public service. As you may recall, the Affordable Care Act was just coming to bear, and there were a lot of decisions that were changing the way we were practicing medicine. So I looked through, I used to read a lot of biographies. Colin Powell, General Powell is one of the first biographies that really caught my attention. And then from there, Dr. Gupta, who's famous among the neurosurgery circles, and I learned a little bit about how they combined their experience in Washington with their future practice. And I thought about applying to graduate programs, but I felt like this was a real-world experience that would be hard to match. And certainly I had a plan B, but this was my dream.
So you hear about those two who are sort of heroes of yours, and they went through the White House Fellows Program.
That's right.
Kind of like why not me, huh?
And
tough getting here.
It was a long road. It was a long road, and I think the best part about the application process is, as Candace mentioned, it really forces you to distill down your goals in terms of what you'd like to accomplish in the next couple years after you graduate, and where you're really taking sort of the intellectual direction of your career. That's a big challenge I think a lot of people face, and this helps you build the contacts and also see sort of in practice how government functions.
And where are you spending your time this year? Where are you assigned?
I'm at the Department of Defense.
Department of Defense.
I am.
All right. Yeah. And in a medical unit there, or policy unit, or
that's a great question. It may not be obvious why a neurosurgeon should be at the Department of Defense, but my skills in understanding traumatic brain injury, humanitarian aid, and even some of the issues with policy making are something that I hope to share with the Defense Department. But I really work. Sort of, as we mentioned earlier, at the chief of staff level, and contribute to things that are outside of my area of expertise. And I think that's one of the greatest learning aspects of the program. We learn about things that I would ordinarily never have exposure to, issues that wouldn't cross my path in my occupation. So it's been an incredible learning experience.
Do you among the fellows, do you get together and do you have a chance to share what you're learning at Department of Defense with somebody who might be like Candace Jones at Department of Education and others? Are those opportunities there as part of the program?
Absolutely. So that's probably one of the greatest parts of the program. That is your 14 other fellows and what they bring in terms of their personalities, their career history, and what their viewpoints are on what's going on in our country. And we meet somewhere between 2 to 3 times a week on a formal basis, and then sometimes even more socially. And a lot of us have family and kids, and so we try and get as many of our members together as possible. And it's an opportunity to share within limits, I think, with what you're working on at your department, but it is definitely a situation where we get together as much as possible.
It's also one of the few programs and environments where military and civilian leaders get a chance to share information. So one thing we intentionally do is 101. So our military fellows actually explain the military to the non-military fellows. Our doctors do a healthcare 101. So they become the experts in their field and share with each other, which is really incredible. But the military-civilian piece is something a lot of these leaders do not get exposed to, both the military leaders as well as the civilian. So for a couple of days every year, we often go on an aircraft carrier and really understand what happens on an aircraft carrier. It's really an incredible environment of learning.
Right. So now, as I understand, unlike Candace, you do have a job to go back to.
I will continue my training, and I'm looking forward to finishing. And at the end of those 2 years, really is at the end of my training is when I make a decision on how to sort of enter the practice of medicine. And really, if I will have an opportunity to have a large component dedicated to policy, I think that'll be a big part of my career in the future. So.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this will just give you so many more opportunities, right?
That's
so
right.
many more ways to make an impact.
That's right. Physicians aren't necessarily trained with an understanding of policy and clinical guidelines that are coming down from HHS and the federal government. This gives us an opportunity to maybe contribute and inspires us to be a part of the process in the future.
All right. Anand Veeravagu, who is another White House Fellow, congratulations again for making the program. Thanks for coming in, sharing your story with us. Ann O'Connell is next, a member of the U.S. Coast Guard and this year's White House Fellow. We'll be right back on the Full Court Press.
Heard around the country.